Hi, and welcome to Your Health with Dina Khader. My name is Dan Rubido, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about stress during the holidays. I think we can all kind of sympathize with that at this time of year where it's a lot of fun, but on the other hand, there's a lot to do. Time constraints come up. It always seems like you're always one step behind, and that can be very stressful. And we spoke last time a little about immunity and how that can be problematic. So can you tell us a little bit? How do we start handling this holiday stress, Dina?
Okay, that's a good question, Dan, because it's something that affects all of us. We end up, we're still working, yet on top of that, we have to go out and get presents for people, gifts, and so on. And it's the stress of realizing everything you have to get done.
Right.
Now, what happens is when we get under stress, mentally and emotionally, our bodies produce a lot more cortisol, and cortisol significantly lessens the effects of the immune system.
Oh, whoa.
And that's why the incidence of colds and flu are much higher over the holiday season, and people just feel much more run down.
Sure.
So
It's not just the time issues and running around all the time. You're actually less healthy?
you're actually less healthy because of the fact that you're feeling stress. So the idea of feeling stressed in itself is impacting your immune system in a negative way. So what I'm going to suggest are some, ideas and tips that people can do to help really minimize those stress levels.
Let's touch on them. I know we kind of talked a little bit, first of all, about the effects of sugar and
Right.
and how that, when you add that to the stress, or actually the sugar, does the sugar make the effects of the stress worse?
It does, because what happens is it impacts one of our white blood cells, which are called neutrophils.
Okay.
And the neutrophils are our first line of defense when we are exposed to a bacteria, a virus, what we call a pathogen.
Okay.
And if your neutrophils are compromised, then there's no first line of defense for the immune system to really help ward off, the infection. And unfortunately, sugar, they have found, even within a 1 to 2 hour period after you ingest it, has a significant decrease on your neutrophils. Now, some of us, may think, well, what do neutrophils look like? Basically, they're like your white cells that go engulfing, almost like Pac-Man.
Oh, so they're actually eat the invaders, if you will.
Exactly, and that's exactly how they work. I mean, that's a really good visual for people.
Okay.
But on a lab test, when you go for lab work to your doctor and get a physical done, anything that's, when you look under a CBC, which is basically your white blood cells and red blood cells, there is a section that says neutrophils.
Oh, okay.
And that's how you can read them. So if your neutrophils are less than the range, you got a serious problem with your immune system.
So you can look at your own blood work and actually come to some conclusions from it.
Absolutely.
Now, see, when I get out, I'm doing my holiday shopping. I go to the mall. I go there with a list, but it never works out the way I want, and it's a mess. And I always stop for a soda and one of the cinnamon rolls. I know that's awful, but so I'm getting the stress and the sugar. What you're saying is that's a double dose of immunity killer right there.
Absolutely, right.
Okay.
So some ideas that what I normally recommend to people, actually, Dan, is take with you a protein bar, something
okay.
that's healthy. And the brands that I like are Organic Food Bar, which is made in California. And there's another very good one that's a more recent brand that's out on the market called Omega Smart Bars.
Okay.
And they do something called pumpkin spice, so you feel like you're having a treat, like a piece of pumpkin pie. And they do other flavors too, but make sure the bar is gluten-free. It's also soy-free and dairy-free.
I've had the pumpkin spice those are almost addictive. They're fantastic. I do
They
really
are,
like those, and you're
exactly.
probably right. They're much better than the cinnamon rolls.
Right,
so
and that's something people
I can switch
carry
easily.
Absolutely, you can carry it in your pocketbook, and men, you can put it in your pockets and take it with you. Another really good idea is to make yourself a healthy sandwich, so that
Sure.
when you're shopping or out doing errands, over your lunch break, make sure you do eat something. Don't just go out and grab a few cookies or like a cinnamon bun, donuts, whatever. And the worst thing to combine with the sugar is a tremendous amount of caffeine, like a cup of coffee with that. Or sodas. And the caffeine also increases your cortisol levels, which again has a negative impact on your immune function.
Okay. Well, would you be willing to share with us then some of your stress-reducing tips for the holidays?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
So let's go. Yeah. So the first one we touched on earlier about minimizing sugar intake. I do recommend making sure that when you're looking at a protein bar, make sure that it has less than 16 grams of sugar per serving, because 1 gram of sugar is actually, 1 teaspoon of sugar is equivalent to 16 grams of sugar. My second tip is about supplementing the adrenals with a really good adrenal formula, and make sure that it's a non-animal based adrenal formula. Since the adrenal glands are the ones that are affected first when we are under stress, that's the first gland you want to take care of at this time. Thirdly, you want to get plenty of sleep, because of course when you don't get adequate sleep, your stress levels will get further out of control, and also the immune function is affected as a result too. And tip number 4, don't rely or fall back on too much caffeine. People tend to drink 3-4 cups of coffee during this time just to keep going and to keep pushing themselves. That's the worst thing you can do, because a few hours later you will crash. And then making sure you increase your veggie intake at this time, because this is the time of year when people tend to eat the least amount of vegetables, both cooked vegetables, salads, but especially vegetable juicing. So I do recommend making sure you get at least 1 good green vegetable juice on a daily basis. And then making sure you have adequate protein as well, because people are rushing, they're running errands, trying to get as much done as possible, and we tend to skip having proper protein at meals. Just make sure you really do get enough protein during the day. And then finally, time management. Try not to cram doing all your errands and things you have to get done in one day. Try and pace yourself, and by pacing yourself, you'll relax, and that will make a huge difference. And then don't forget, finally, to also exercise, because exercise is a huge stress releaser for many of us. And those of you who do meditation or yoga, these are other things that will also help you at this time of year.
Well, Dina, I'll be honest, I'm guilty of more than a couple of those offenses right there, but I'm glad we got that information. That gives me something to think about when I'm out, in these last couple weeks, and try to really reduce the stress that builds up.
Good, Dan, because I know that a lot of these tips that I've suggested will be very helpful at this time. And it really will reduce your chances of getting sick, because also don't forget, you're also among a larger amount of people who are also shopping at this time of year too. So just the crowd exposure in itself makes you more, vulnerable to bacteria.
Oh, it sure
and
does.
viruses as well.
But I'm sure this will be very helpful. I'm sure it'll be helpful to all our viewers. And I think we'd both like to wish you a very happy holidays, and we'll see you next time.